G'day, mate. What's your name?
My name's James Stevenson, one half of the Stevenson Experience.
And what do you do, James?
I'm a musical comedian with my identical twin brother.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Crowdworkcast. My name's Andrew Barnett. Thanks so much for joining me. Great episode for you this week. James Stevenson, one half of the Stevenson Experience. The Stevos, if you've never seen them, musical duo, identical twins, very, very funny. James was good enough to sit down with me and we just chatted through comedy. This was a real fun chat. He is a bit of a comedy nerd like myself, so this was a lot of fun just chatting through a whole bunch of sort of some of the technical stuff, some of the fun stuff, but also just a very fun, funny chat. So you're going to enjoy that. In terms of plugging stuff, you can check out the Stevenson. They are at the Stevenson Experience on Instagram. If you want to follow me at Andrew Barnett Comedy. If you're in Brisbane or around Brisbane in August 22nd, I'm going to be doing my solo show at the Good Chat Comedy Club, and I'm going to be spending a bit of time up there that week. So you can get tickets at goodchatcomedy.com or via the link in my link tree, which is in the bio of my Instagram. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do like, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. If you're into your rugby league, you can check out my other podcast that I do with Steve Philp and Nathan Brooks. That's called Not Another Fucking Rugby League Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Other than that, like, subscribe, leave me a review would be handy. Other than that, just enjoy this. This is my chat with James Stevenson.
You know what? That's the first time I've had that answer.
Good, because if there was any
specific.
competition in the market, I'm pretty sure we'd be fucked.
That's interesting because like most comedians, like there's like of a type,
Yeah.
right? And there's lots of different comedians who like you can hear are influenced by other people or have similar, like are drawn to similar jokes, but not many people are ripping off musical comedians from identical twin brothers.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought.
You would be surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, we grew up in Canberra and we started comedy in Canberra and then moved to Sydney. And when I moved to Sydney, right about when we'd started to discover our voice, there were people in the open mic scene who were also discovering their voice. As in just starting, not the 7-year project of discovering voice. And it just turned out that their voice sounded a little bit like our voice. And I've seen it with other mates of ours who started around the time. Once they sort of cracked it, 5-7 years, they find their identity on stage. All of a sudden, there's a couple more of them on stage who are just starting. So you would be surprised.
But that is like, as much as that's annoying, and you see it happen, but that's sort of one of the first indications of, you're doing something good when you start to see...
Totally, yeah. Plus, I don't actually find it annoying. I don't think it's bad at all, because when we started, our voice was very much mimicking those we loved. Not saying anyone loved us, but like the Umbilical Brothers, Tripod, huge influences on us. So I don't think if you start, as long as you're not stealing jokes, if you start and your vibe is building towards those that you like, then that helps create your style. You just can't do it forever. But I think that's pretty normal.
I think it's too part of that to me, when you see people do that, you know they got into comedy because they actually enjoy comedy, because they're consuming it, they're watching it, they've seen something in it that's they've identified, well, that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Is that how I want to make other people laugh?
Yeah.
And then you sort of naturally do it, and then hopefully, you grow.
There's that hilarious look on the face when somebody who's watched so much comedy starts doing comedy and they've written a joke that should, in theory, work like one of the greats.
Yeah.
And then they do it, and then their face is just sort of, why aren't they laughing? That's what Billy Connolly would have done.
Yeah. And it's always funny. There was a Bill Burr period where there was lots of Bill Burr type. Where he was doing one of his tricks would be to basically set up with the premise that you're like, oh, no one's going to agree with this. And then by the end, you're laughing along. And then so you'd see people influenced by that. Like, I want to be like Bill Burr. I'm like, you didn't see the 35 years of work that got him to the point where he knows how to do that.
And then they'll do that for a year and then sensibly realise and then move on and then get better. Yeah.
So Canberra, how long have you guys been going now?
We have been going, 2008? We started in year 2006. 2006. Really? Yeah, we started in year 11 in high school, like proper, playing clubs and did raw comedy through the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And we did Class Clowns when we were in like year 9 and year 8 and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say we were working as comedians. And then around 06, 07, when we did Raw, we were actively working at comedians and going to clubs and doing shows before we were 18.
But you'd never got paid more than the $500 limit to go into that?
Never heard of a $500. It's comedy. I still haven't got $500 from anyone, ever. I've never been paid $500 in my life. And then I'd say we started being okay maybe 2012, and then we were shit for 5 years or so. 5 years? Yeah. Like, we started before we were good, that's for sure. So to say an actual proper gigging comic was probably around when we moved to Sydney, which was 11 years ago, actually, yeah. So, yeah, let's go with 11.
11 years. So you moved to Sydney with the idea of pursuing comedy, or?
Yeah, did comedy all through uni, but was also doing uni. Worked in engineering for 6 months. Decided I'd rather kill myself than show up to engineering one more day of my life. And quit that, moved to Sydney that Monday.
So, and your brother, Beej, so you did engineering, obviously, at uni.
Yep. Engineering and arts.
And, well.
Yeah. Couldn't leave the arts behind completely.
Mate,
I'm like, I'll tell you how to design this engine, but then I'll write a poem about it.
Arts, yeah. What sort of stuff did you do in the arts side of it? Because arts can be almost anything.
Well, actually, strangely, I mean, a lot of fiction and a lot of writing. Strangely, they don't offer stand-up comedy at university.
No.
Because
I know a couple of schools, like there's a couple of schools in Sydney, they pop up in my Instagram feed, which I don't know how to feel about that, because I post stand-up clips. The algorithm thinks maybe I need to go do a course.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we've seen the clips. Our AI robot has some pointers.
Yeah. Maybe you need to go to Bonkers Comedy School. Dante D1 will sort you out.
Come on down to Clown College, Barney.
Oh, man.
This will be good.
I think technically on that website I am a graduate of that school that I never went to.
Really?
They're the Bonkers.
Oh, wow.
It used to be on the website that I was one of his graduates.
Yeah.
Not that
if you're going to lie about someone, no offense or shade to you, go up a level.
100%.
Go up. And this Jim Carrey. Nah, we'll go with Barney. We won't get caught.
Literally before I'd done anything that anyone would cause anyone to even be aware of me. Like I think the credit was Andrew Barnett in brackets Sydney Comedy Store.
Yeah.
Because
you'd been there,
to go there
once. Yeah, exactly.
So
no, it's like your early blurbs. We used to always write supported Amy Schumer. We didn't support Amy Schumer. We were on the same club lineup that she dropped into an hour after we'd finished. Never saw her. Never met her. It's in the blurb.
See, now I did work with Amy Schumer when she was out here.
Oh, did you?
Doing unannounced gigs at the store at one point.
That might have been the same gigs. We were probably on that same weekend.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, we did work with her. It wasn't a lie, but
no,
we didn't. I wouldn't say we supported her. I'd say she supported the economy of the gig we were at.
100%.
Yeah.
Because she was out here. She was, I don't know.
Yeah, it was just before. It was like season 2 of Inside Amy Schumer when she was just really cusping massive. And I got to say, in that club, watching her do stand-up, I was like, she's going to be enormous. It was barnstorming. Like, it was so good. And then I haven't really.
I remember saying to her, like asking her, because she was unannounced on the lineups, but she was here for like a few weeks. So I did a few runs with her. And I remember asking her, after I got comfortable, I was sort of bouncing around the question backstage. So I'm like, so are you here? Like, she just looks at me and goes, why am I here? That's what you want to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fair enough. Yes, that's what I want to know, Amy. Why are you here? And she goes, oh, she was dating an Australian actor at the time.
Oh, was she?
Yes.
Which actor?
Josh Lawson, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You learn something new every day.
She goes, it's a boy. I'm in love with a boy, or fell in love with a boy, or something like the words to that effect. I'm not saying that they were hot and heavy, or I don't need gossip out of this.
Well, she could put on her poster, supported Joss Lawson.
Yeah, well, and
emotionally.
Yeah,
brackets emotionally.
Oh yeah, maybe do that. Emotional support for wife and family.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going on my posters.
Yeah.
So
we did a music festival once where we were on.
Oh, really?
Well, we've done a whole bunch of music festivals and stuff like that, and we did one very early on where we were on with The Living End, and the websites and stuff that do the bios and stuff like that, like the school you were saying, would say we supported The Living End. And we got like one or two people who were like expecting like a rock show.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh no, we were just on at the same music festival.
Where's the third guy with the stand-up bass?
Yeah, exactly. Where are they? Yeah.
Oh man, I actually did once, and it was one of the things that used to be in my little bio.
Yeah.
I hosted the 1 year the Hoodoo Gurus hosted like their own music festival.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hosted the comedy stage just down here at Enmore, and that was part of my thing. Host of comedy stage Hoodoo Gurus music festival. The Hoodoo Gurus would have had no clue I existed.
Probably not.
They're not aware.
You don't know they didn't duck down for a little bit of a glimpse?
They may have, because what was his name? There was a guy from, I want to say the Hard-Ons, or one of those Australian sort of bands that was sort of had a real strong cult following.
Yeah.
Tried stand-up.
Yeah.
To mixed results.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But on the stage. So they may have been part of
the Hard-Ons was our first group name. So
Really?
Yeah, the Stevenson Experience was formerly known as the Hard-Ons.
How good. Yeah, well, you were in high school, so
yeah, exactly. What's funny? Dicks. That's it.
And plus, when you're 15 and you're on stage, if you get a hard on, it's all just part of it.
Mate,
no, it's a joke.
It's the riff. It's the riff. Yeah. Where are you going?
So couple of questions.
Sorry, I sidetracked you hard.
No. A couple of questions I'm interested in. So
yeah,
moving to Sydney, because it's very much for the most part, stand-up's very much a solo sport. But you and Beach being a double act, I'm interested in some of the dynamics of that. Like, one, I'm interested in musical comedy. It's one of my because musical comedy can cop a bit of.
Well, I'm very interested and passionate about music comedy, and I will defend it to the death.
Well, this is the thing. Like, a lot of comedians are very cynical about musical comedy.
Yes, they are.
I will often say, I actually really enjoy musical comedy, and I will say this, that if I had any inkling of musical talent, I would be doing musical comedy so quick. I've suggested people write.
It hasn't stopped us, inkling of talent. No way.
But no, just even the understanding of how to structure a song or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I've suggested to musical comedians, I've two now. I've given them song suggestions for them to write.
I've never got a song suggestion from you.
No, I haven't.
So that's a bit rude.
I haven't had an idea in your voice yet.
Yeah.
I had an idea for Mick Meredith, which I actually
let's hear it.
Reminded him of it a little.
In case we might be using it, you could be blowing it here.
Mate, I know he's not, because I reminded him of it a little while ago, and he goes, geez, I was grumpy then, because I said to him, it was right remember when Ed Sheeran released Perfect, that song, and he was quite open about, I wanted to write a song that people would have on as their wedding dance.
Yeah.
Right. So I suggested to Mick, I said, man, you got to write one for second weddings.
Yeah.
Right. Which I thought was a funny concept.
Yeah. Great concept.
Yeah, and I suggested the first line. So the first line of the Ed Sheeran song is, we were just kids when we fell in love.
Yeah.
So you start it with, we both had kids when we fell in love.
Yeah.
And Mick just looks at me and goes, don't write the fucking song for me, mate. And he just never
did it.
Never did it. So fingers crossed, Mick, if you are
watching or listening.
Yeah, watching or listening, mate, I'm still waiting to see that song. I'm
Get
really
onto
looking
it.
forward to it. And then I had one for Steph Broadbridge. An idea for Steph Broadbridge that she's like, no, that's not my voice.
Yeah.
But she goes, you should write it.
Are these all parodies, or is this an original?
No, it was a parody, but it was around the idea of, the vague idea I had, the example I gave her was parody type, but I still reckon the concept of writing like a modern love song, not based on, a lot of the love songs are based on not really how people court anymore.
Yeah.
So like a love song based on how people interact on the apps.
Yeah. Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now. Which I have no real insight
Good
into.
premise. Write it out.
Yeah. That's what she said to me.
Write it out. Test it in the clubs.
I'm like, I'm not writing a song.
Yeah.
I'm not writing a song.
No. Well, we're very...
You don't really do parody though, do you?
We don't do parody at all. So everything we do is original.
Moral stance?
Or
just don't want to pay royalties?
It's just not us. I've got nothing against people who do parodies. I've got nothing for them, but I've got nothing against them. No, I don't mind it. I don't think I could do an entire show full of parodies. It wouldn't be the style that I wanted to watch. But no, everything we do is original, and all of our music is original. We also don't rescore songs and add our own lyrics on them, even if they're not a parody, which quite a few musical comedians do. Everything we do is original music and original lyrics. But we're really structured in that, like, if you think about, I mean, you mentioned that musical comedy gets a bad rap, right? And I think musical comedy gets a bad rap because there's a lot of bad musical comedy out there, as well as a lot of good musical comedy out there. Now, there is so many bad stand-up, but there's 1,000 more stand-ups.
Yeah.
So if there's far less musical comedians and you see a bad one, then it gets a bad rap. I also think that one of the major, and Beej and I, huge comedy nerds, right? The way we perform is sort of different to how we think about writing. The way we perform is quite fun and meant to be quite involved and quite engaging and stuff like that. But the way we write is very rigid and like almost obsessive. Like we will slave over every word. We'll fight over one word for a week and a half.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of times where pre-festival shows, when you're in that peak of fine-tuning everything.
Yeah.
We're going the happy-go-lucky boys on stage.
Yeah.
Is not how you two interact
and
backstage.
I don't like writing. I'm a better punch-upper, and Benjamin's a better premisser. But yeah, back immediately after the show, if we're working on the show, once the show's done, we're a lot less obsessive about it. But immediately after the show, we will go back and we will change. You know, we'll change 7 words from an entire hour or something like that. And so we're very rigid. The reason musical comedy gets a bad rap, which I believe can be bucked, is that I think that musical comedy is not an excuse. It's not an excuse to not get past the punchline. So we have a few rules with our structures of our songs, in that the premise or the twist or the pullback or reveal, if you're writing a stand-up joke, has to come quite early. It has to be very clear to the audience, and then no choruses. If you're going to do a chorus, it has to have a really clear additional joke or escalation in it. Otherwise, no choruses. No solos, no choruses. Because if you were to think about this as a stand-up joke written, which is closer to what we do than sort of Broadway music style, we're more stand-up jokes in song form, then a stand-up would never tell the same joke twice. So why would we? And a stand-up would never tell a joke and then scat. Like after a punchline. So you never would. There's obviously sort of like...
I might start now.
Yeah, do it.
I could be the scatting comedian. And then you just get a lot of Germans turning up expecting something completely
exactly.
different.
The scat comedian.
Where was the shit play?
Oh my God, it's on OnlyFans. That was more like Lebanese than I don't know why I did that. But yeah, I just feel like the music, people who tell us openly before they go to our shows that they don't like musical comedy, and then tell us afterwards that they're like, oh, I actually really enjoyed you, which you get all the time. Audience members think it's fine to say, I thought you were going to be shit, and then you weren't. And they just afterwards always say, oh, I thought I was going to hate you. I don't like stand-up. I've heard it, every comedian I know would have had it millions of times. But those people are expecting not to hear as many jokes, or not to hear the same pace of jokes. So we're very rigid about our pace has to be the same as the stand-up that we are writing, and there are no choruses, and we will not repeat. And there's a bit of musicality into it, and there's a bit sort of more performance than a stand-up maybe, but that's just because it's our style. It's not because it's any better or worse. It's just because it's different.
It's funny you should say that about choruses, because when we did a few...
Fuck choruses.
Well, we did a few musical parodies when I was at Fox, and we do them on air, and it was always sort of whatever rugby league story or whatever we were trying to wedge a bunch of jokes about it, and we could do it in a in a song. And I remember one we did was we used Jesse's Girl to do like a back and forth about, was when Kevin Walters and Freddie Fittler were the two coaches. And they were going into a decider. And it basically was, I wish I had Freddie's, you wish that you had Freddie's balls. No, you wish you had Kevy's ball. But even to the point with, we had similar rule with choruses, but it was harder when you'd parodying a song.
Yeah, because that song goes into the chorus. Well, then you just have to add an escalation.
Yes. Yeah. So at the end, where he's, I wish I had Jesse's Girl. We had every. We basically just went on the internet and found every simile for testicles that we could. So that and it changed every time, and then we went on. We'd do the visual, because TV, you got to do the visual part of the joke as well. In the big screen behind us, we had all these photoshopped photos. So at one point it was Kevy's cods, and we had a photo of Kevy, and we'd photoshopped two cods. So it was, and it all, every prop we had to be, there had to be two of them, and they had to be dangling. Just in case our audience forgot we're talking about testicles.
Just in case in the 2.5 minute attention span of Jesse's Girls they forgot.
But that was like something I'd never really, until we were doing that, and I remember Rochford pointed out to me, he goes, no, it's a comedy song, so you can't repeat choruses. Like you get a really funny chorus, but it's not funny the second time, and it's even less funny the third time. So you've got to...
You just want to escalate or change it. It's different. That's our style. It's different for people who have a lot of musical talent and can make things sound really, really good. Tim Minchin, Tripod, Flight of the Conchords, obvious examples. I mean, most of them follow the structure of not just outright repeating the chorus, but their songs sound so much better than our songs, and their pace is more musical, that they sort of do a more musically rounded thing, whereas ours is more of a stand-up set in song.
Funny, so, I was actually thinking about that on the way into it, thinking about how because I was interested in how that process works, both writing musical comedy as opposed to just straight stand-up, and working with someone writing, you're having to write and perform with someone else. But that was the thing I was thinking about with your songs, is it's very much gag based. Like you could write most of those jokes in your songs out in a stand-up set and do it. I mean, it'd be weird that they rhyme.
But, slam poetry, mate. Slam poetry.
But you know what I mean? Like it's a different style, because yours, and very much like you'll take a premise, and each song's about a premise rather than, trying to...
We sort of go in, like some of our premises we come up with together, and some of them we write separately. A premise, a hook, 3 or so jokes, sort of the vibe of the song, we'll pitch it to the other, and then we'll write it out together. When we start songs, and again, this is a victim of not being good musically. If I was good musically, our songs would be a lot more musical. And that's not to say that if other comedian songs are more musical, they're less funny. They're certainly as funny. It's just a separate, or I reckon they're funnier, to be honest, but it's just a separate style. But when we take that hook and premise and then we write it out, the first song we write is too long. Too long by half. It's got 17 verses. It's aggressively long. It takes forever to get the setup. It needs too much. And when we play it in the audience, the first couple of times, because we try and play everything a lot before we charge an audience to see it. And the first couple of times you can sort of see where they've twigged on, we understand what the premise is. We don't need it. Again, we don't need this. We're ready for the reveal and stuff like that. And then it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And then if you've seen us, we know we have a lot of banter or arguments in our song. And so once the actual songs we write are really short, right? And then once we show them, once we do that, so we write them long, we squish them down into the core of the songs, and then we perform them out. So they get longer with sort of our riffs and our banter and our style and what it's about. So our opening songs are always quite long for reasons unbeknownst to me. But they'll go for 10, 11 minutes at the start of an hour show, the first song. But if you just played the song, it'd probably go for like 3 minutes. So we cram a lot of other jokes and riffs, and we stop and we banter and we argue and stuff like that.
Did you intentionally, in terms of those personas you have on stage, did you intentionally? Is it a natural dynamic you've fallen into?
Oh, right. So I'm a big believer in that shows shouldn't be boring, and that a show you're watching a show,
yes.
right? So it's a show. So for our voice and for what we are characters in that show. And we write our songs and we put together the 5 or 6 that we've written across the year, and we sort of see the sort of common theme, try and find a narrative, 3-act structure, an ending. All of those things are really important to us from a narrative perspective of the show, which means that whichever character we play is in service to the narrative that we are trying to tell, so that at the end of the show it is very clear that those characters are resolved. Now, it's not the most complicated things that we're dealing with or anything like that. Beej thinks he's higher and mighty than me because he writes books, and I want to deliver a really fun pop show or something like that. Leno and Woodley. Leno's always classy and always wants something higher, and Woodley's always silly, right? So elements of that sort of character. But if the next show is Benjamin is angry at me, then he becomes sort of the dick through that show, and I'll be the silly one. Generally, I'm a bit sillier and Benjamin's a little bit more formal, but neither of us are ever the straight guy. And, we'll do shows where I'm worried about Benjamin dying and Benjamin's ignoring me because he's busy writing books or something like that. So he'll try and be aloof and formal, and I'll try and be sort of emotional and needy. And that's that year's show. But whichever show we're leaning into, whichever feeds the narrative the best is the archetypes that we play. But yeah, they swap up and down. It's not consistent through every show in our career. Normally, though, I'm trying to fuck Beej up. Normally, I would say.
That thinking back into all the stuff I've seen, that sort of is the more regular occurrence. So when you obviously you guys write entire hour shows is each year, but pulling stuff out for club sets and that sort of stuff is it a case of you get to the end and you go, okay, any one of these songs is good for a club set, or is it a case of this needs too much?
No, absolutely not. And it takes us a while to figure that out. So the hour shows are written as hour shows, and there's obviously there's club songs in them. Like there's songs we can pull out, and sometimes we get lucky and you can pull that straight out. And there's other songs that need a bit of setup or need work or need reduction or something for a club. And it takes us a while. I would say, if I'm being honest, that sole independent start and play in a club in a 15-minute set, we would have probably 20 minutes of material from each show. Everything else is possibly too tied to the show to be like extremely good in a club. We still play a bunch of the stuff in clubs and they still go well, but often there's a lot of pace you need when you're just doing a 20-minute headline in a club. And so were we to pluck our songs out of our show, we can normally pluck 3 of them out and play them straight away in clubs, play another one that's a bit longer if it's a really good club and we know the audience like us and stuff like that, sort of give them a 15-minute chunk of that stuff. But as far as pulling out like 5-minute bits, I say we'd be lucky if we get 3 of them out of a show. But also, I think that's pretty common with stand-up. What do you reckon? Most people aren't cranking out 10 back-to-back 5-minute sets, bangers in an hour. Most people.
I tend to agree with that. I remember years ago, Reece Nicholson telling me if he can get 20 minutes club out of any given hour, he's pretty happy.
Yeah, that's about... I'd be thrilled with 20 minutes club. Do you have 20 minutes of club? I've already written down Jesse's balls or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that.
Mate, Kevy's balls.
Sorry, mate.
Kevy's balls.
Sorry,
you don't know your rugby league at all, mate.
I don't know my shit parodies, mate.
Well, mate, it's on YouTube. I'll send you the link. No, there's... I think I changed my approach a lot to how I wrote my festival shows, because I was like, I always tried to do something different than what I practiced the full year, right? Whereas because I predominantly work everything out in clubs, then I was trying to go away and write something that I hadn't practiced all year.
Yeah.
So then I realised, okay, I sit down and go, well, what am I writing about? And try and similar thing, try and find those themes.
Yeah, you get
and then go, okay, I can run a thread through this.
Yeah.
So that and to be honest, the thread is as much for keeping the audience on track as it is for me remembering what's next.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that thought leads into this thought and connects with that and gets there. So mine are much more now. Like, don't get me wrong, there's always a little extra bit at the moment that I'll do, that I just sort of almost, if you saw me do it in a club, you'd go, oh, that's like a 4-minute bit, but then it's actually an extended, when you got time to stretch your legs, it can be an extended thing.
Yeah.
And it might only have, instead of being a 4-minute bit that's got like 4 jokes in it or 5 jokes in it, it might have
it
7 jokes,
into
but
sort
goes
of a
10.
Yeah.
And then it has a nice little callback at the end that pays off the serious part of it. But that's just I think I've realised that doing longer sets, you do have to give them some change of pace.
So we have a theory about that, which is that, and I don't think every show needs a form or a narrative or needs to end up somewhere. It can be, all bits together. But the really, really good stand-ups who I love to watch, they have their sort of 5-minute bit, 5-minute bit, 5-minute bit, 5-minute bit, 5-minute bit. They have them, but they're all tied together, like you said. They spin off into each other. The 5 that's in the club is actually about 7 because it rolls into the next bit, makes it feel like a larger sort of object than it is, even if it's not following sort of a direct narrative or has a direct conclusion. Now, there are things that I like to do in shows that I write, but not necessarily things that I need in shows that I watch. But what I do need is not someone just... I find if someone just comes out and they're like 5-minute set, 5-minute set, 5-minute set, 5-minute set, and they're not spinning anything, and they're clearly not, and you don't have to do everything, but if they're not spinning it together, if they're not talking about something, if they're not heading somewhere, if they're not resolving something, then basically it's like watching a Fast and Furious movie with a car chase every 5 minutes, where at the start of the movie, the bad guy steals Vin Diesel's girlfriend and then gives her back every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Steal the girlfriend at the start, give her back at the end. That's the most basic bullshit action movie in the world would do that, whereas some comics give her back every 5 minutes and then take her again immediately. And around 40 minutes, the audience gets really tired and they want to see something or feel something or hear something just a little bit meatier to grab onto for a period of time. And then close with another 5-minute bit or something like that. That normally happens around the middle of the show.
See, I think in terms of writing like an hour, like my hour shows, it's less in terms of an overall narrative in terms of this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
You
don't need a narrative at all.
More of a point of view. This is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So this is like, it'll have little stories like this might be what this happened, but that made me think of this. And I'm trying to, instead of, like you said, because that pacing, well,
if you talk about sports and then you talk about your kids going to footy and then you talk about school and then it all rolls into each other. Whereas if you talk about breakfast and then you talk about going to London, and you do that every time for an hour, that's when I get distracted and less engaged.
I also find if you just do one like for me, one type, if I'm just rat-a-tat, 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 hitting them punchline, lots of laughs per minute, which I love doing a nice rapid-fire laughs per minute thing.
But, get it rapid-fire, Barney.
Yeah, well, you know me, mate. Yeah. No, but like, I enjoy that.
They call him the quick hits. Andrew, the quick hits Barnett.
That's it, mate. That's what you've been talking to my wife.
Yeah.
But I find like one pace, doesn't matter if it's like just all super quick or it's all like one pace tends to be too much of a pattern. You've got to sort of mix.
It's got to be
things
modulated
up a little bit, and
David Collins from the Ummies, he taught me something that we carry through into all of our shows, which is when you're getting at the end, which everyone knows, callbacks and all that normal shit. But he said, give them something they have seen before, give them something they have heard before, then give them something they haven't seen or heard before. So tie up your callbacks with something different. So if you've been standing stock still the whole time, move. If you've been moving the whole time, slow it down, bring it in. If your lights have been going and it's a huge production, box them in quietly and talk about what you've done before. And it works. It works to wondrous effect to have your audience on the common theme of what you've been doing, have them engage with who you are as a comedian, and then surprise them with something that's slightly different that maybe they weren't expecting, which is which is fun, and I like to write to that sort of climax. It's always interesting, and you see it every single time. People want to end with whatever they want to end with is normally different to the body of the show. Normally,
yeah. I'm just thinking about my own, like, it's funny you should say like this sort of stuff. Is I'm much more interested in this than I used to be. I think there's a tendency, for me, and I think for a lot of comics, for when there's the thing, like especially starting out, there's stuff you don't really understand. Like, and so you see, like if you're like a predominantly like working all your stuff out in clubs or whatever, and then you see people put these festival hours together and you don't know how to do it. You're like, well, that's just festival comics, mate. You know, like it's very easy to be dismissive of it. But now, as I've got more experience and just better at and expanding my skill set, now it's like, okay, well, I'm still not interested in sitting down and going, well, here's what happened to me last year. Not there's anything wrong with that. It's just not how I can or do right. That's not. But what I'm interested in is, okay, how do I use my skill set to pick up this next bit where I do turn it into something a bit more than just, you know, them seeing, if they're going to, the difference between them seeing me do 35 or 40 in a headline set to they're sitting for 60, well, what am I giving them in that extra 20 minutes? It can't just feel like, you know, I was the closing act on another night. You've got the chance then to give them a bit of insight. And one of the good bits of advice I got from Akmal, of all people, he said he realised when he was touring with Jim Owen that Jim Owen gives people, like, they sort of, he gives them a bit of him. They buy into him and his point of view and his character. And I'm like, okay, if you've got an hour, then you can afford to, like...
Well, you get a lot more character work across the line. The songs we're playing at 45 minutes into our show and the assumed character that we've taught the audience, or showed the audience who we are over the last 45 minutes, we can't play them just coming on stage in a club. You could never, because they've got all this assumed, but you can get away with, and that is where you get your best jokes. Like if you've got an audience captivated for an hour and they're into you and they're into the show, then that's absolutely where you get your best jokes, because you can't tell them, and they're built on 40 minutes of premises and stuff like that. You know, watch any comedy movie with any foreshadowing. The jokes that pay off are the long game, and that's an hour show. I mean, I say this because these sort of techniques align to my theatrical preference, and I'm not a very good pure stand-up writer. So I'm jealous of those who are. And certainly, like, you go see shows and they just, like, barnstorm out 55 an hour, 75 minutes of straight jokes straight at you with none of these things that I know I love in the shows that I watch. And then I'll love it just as much. And I think it's just a question of voice. It's just what voice is the person delivering, and what do you like as a punter, and then there's
and working out how to do it with your skill set.
But most people, I do find most people, if they just do 55 minutes of club set bangers, most people have a small third act diversion or change to the formula to keep the audience's interest.
I think too, there's sometimes it's even jokes that just give you a little bit more into the point of view of what they're talking about. Like, there's plenty of comedians that do like just rat-a-tat-tat the whole time, and the pace modulation.
Yeah, and then it's like gag, 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 and then it stops, and you're like, this is real. This is what this person thinks, and you engage with it on sort of a higher, level. You feel in the room with them.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes people can feel a bit rehearsed, but.
And now it's like that's my new, like, not my new, but that's what I'm like. I'll sort of working towards, is that just playing with that and working out and having the confidence to do that too. As someone who,
well, your opinions are quite misogynistic, bigoted, and racist, so you would bring them out on stage.
Don't be reductive.
Get them on.
So much more than that. I'm not just misogynist. I'm not just racist. I'm both. So. Yeah, no, it's like just I mean, just being able to play with the pacing and just have the confidence of sitting in it. And it took me so long to learn, like, which is something you guys do so well. Is it's a performance, no matter whether, like, I mean,
we're very showy. We're very, very much. There's a lot of comics who say they will never write anything down or something like that. We are pure show, and if the show is done when you buy a ticket to us on a quiet night, on a busy night, on the first night, on the 100th night, if the show is done and actually finished, then you should get the same show. We sort of treat it like that. Like we're live, we're there in front of you, and it's not going to be word perfect exactly the same. We're present. It's not like
and
you're watching
not
a film,
ignorant to what's going on in
but
the
you
room.
have purchased a ticket to this show. You are getting this show, and we're not we don't move around our set list. We don't play a different song. It is this show. We don't be like, oh, the vibe's a bit this way. Maybe we'll lean into this gear. The show is the show. If you bought the album at the end of it, it should have been pretty much what you saw on stage because it's the show we're trying to deliver.
See, where I think I'm a bit more, I'll lean into just to, and for no other reason than obviously keep myself interested and in the room. But you guys do, like, I'm thinking of that you turning up. I remember we did a gig. What was the venue? At Barangaroo.
Oh, cocktails and...
Oh, that
cocktails
was...
that was fucking shit house.
I was watching you guys.
Great room though, and like had all the potential in the world. Just a crowd full of absolute ratbags.
And the venue,
finance bros on dates, getting hand jobs in the front row.
The venue didn't understand well, they didn't understand the etiquette of the show because you guys were closing, and I reckon about 12 minutes into your set, there was a couple that arrived.
Yeah.
And then they seated him in the second row and proceeded to stand in front of them, second row, between them and the stage.
Giving them the wine menu.
Loudly read the specials.
And he took like 15 minutes to order a drink, and then they left, and then he made out with his girlfriend or whatever date for, I don't know, 10 minutes, and then they came back and loudly asked him about the year of the wine and stuff like that. And it was just like their order for drinks and food took our entire set, and it was 2 people.
But I wouldn't have, basically if I was just watching you and all I could see was a camera on you two, I wouldn't have known they were there because you two didn't.
You would have known.
The show charged on. I might have known because I could see.
I think anyone would have known that they could have seen the soul leaving our eyes as we stunk up the joint.
But you didn't like throw a tent, like you just kept on with the show.
No, well, you want to do it. I mean, sometimes you got to address the things in the room, and many people are so much better at that than we are. But we know our show, and we're going to play it.
How do you go with? So you guys obviously have got your banter that's pre-written. There's jokes because you've got jokes both in the middle of songs. Sometimes you stop down and you'll have an argument, and there's jokes all in there, or jokes in the setup before you get into a song.
Yeah.
How do you guys go? Do you like? How's the writing process for that as opposed to the writing process for the songs?
Well, because we're arguing each other, it's often very realistic. And then on top of that sort of realism, where this is the juncture where we feel like, oh, let's do this and let's do this, is the first time we're performing them is very much more improv-y, feeling it out on stage in more of a way that you can do with stand-up that you can't do with song. Very, very limiting for us in song because we can't flex around an idea that comes to us on stage, but with all those setups and with all that banter we can. So we can come in with sort of form and structure and ideas, and then on stage we can develop them into sentences. But with songs, we've actually started just doing that now on stage. We'll write the sort of premise, and then one of us will say, can you just give me a 4-bar here, and I'll see if I can say something over that about this. And then you just be like, or on stage you'll just say, I'll say to Beej, or Beej will say to me, oh, give me another bar, and then we'll do a verse with just the one of us singing that they've just come up with on the spot. And that's when we work it out. But yeah, it's also very equal. If one of us says something to the other one has to say something back. It's got to be equal footing. Obviously, there's like The Rock and Vin Diesel with their punches in the contracts. Not because things can't end, or not because people can't have a zinger on the other person. It's because we want the audience to feel sort of equally about the both of us. And
you don't want them to feel like one's a victim and the other one's a bully. Or
exactly. The second they think you're bullying is the second they sort of turn on the concept of what we do, which is very jovial and very light.
But you both need to get victories.
And we both make sure we have victories alongside. At some of our shows, we get the audience to decide who has those victories, and some of our shows have the side of clearly people get liked more
Yeah. So who's clearly got
me? I win them all.
Really?
Yeah. We used to have like a laugh thing,
So it's
and
the
then like a
opposite to
robot.
backstage. That's amazing.
Rude. No, I win them all. I'd say I win 80% of if we are talking to the audience about who likes who or selecting. But we also write into that. Like, we're very, very aware of who's getting what reaction from who, and
it's fascinating. It fascinates me that dynamic. Like, I don't know how I'd go on stage if, like, so especially something happens in the crowd and you've got a line for it, but then do you find sometimes like something happens in the crowd, there's a bit of an interaction, and you've got the line, and do you feel that pressure to race to it before Beach?
No. If we race, we talk over each other. Oftentimes, one of us, aka me, will go like this and look at Benjamin and say, "Yep, save this." And Beach is really good at coming in with a sniper. So no, we're not really competitive about stealing the lines, and because we've worked so much with each other, we probably have quite a similar perception of the direction that the other person is going to take it, or that either of us are going to take it. So not really. I mean, who gets there, because we really try not to talk to each other. So whoever gets there first gets the line, and we have that trust as partners that what you're going to say is worth saying as what I was going to say. Doesn't matter if it was different. And then we move on from there. And if he says something shit, I'll pull him up on it. I'll banter with him. I'll vibe him, and then I'll say what I was going to say or whatever. So there's definitely flexibility about that, but we're never competitive. And same in the writing. If we've written a whole bunch of gags and I've got 5 of them and I've written 5 of them, I'll give him half of them so that it's balanced. Like, yeah, for us, it's whoever. It used to be whoever wrote the jokes to say the joke. We want the glory.
Yeah.
We want the adoration. We want the glory. We want our ego stroke. Now it is who is the most appropriate person to be telling this joke at this point in time that fits in character, that fits in structure, and that fits in the tone of the song or the voice in which we've been speaking up to this joke. It wouldn't make sense.
So who's
to flip
in service of the show rather than in service of
the
one
show?
One
if the
or
show
the
gets a huge laugh, we both win. We're not too precious about. I mean,
well, in the end, they're coming to see the Stevenson experience, which is the two of you. So you want that show to be as good as possible.
I mean, they have to see 2 of us.
Yeah.
You don't know who they're coming to see.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like next year they're gonna have an option, one Stevenson experience or the other Stevenson experience.
No, exactly.
You're never gonna have competing shows, so you don't need to outdo the other one in that sense.
And we try to separate it with like things where someone will have a stand-up bit, or someone will have a little song, or someone will have a thing, or someone will have a clear victory, like you said, or something like that.
Do you have those non-verbal cues, like you said, like you give a look, like is there a lot of non-verbal communication going on between you, or because you're identical twins, do you have is there
there are
shiny?
There are a few elements in show. Like I said, once the show is done, it's the show you're getting.
Yeah.
And there's banter with the crowd, and there's being alive and presence in the room. So there would be changes and riffs and all of that stuff that comes with performing. But once the show is done, we don't really need those sort of signals. If we're doing a headline set and we're like, want to skip a verse, or we feel like a different song is appropriate, or we're going to cut a tag or something like that, then there's non-verbal cues that we do, and we're quite good at picking up on each other's. But as far as the show goes, because we don't want to change the show, the worst thing we do, and something that I'm trying to stop actively, and we both do it, is when the audience isn't as responsive as you would like them to be, we swear too much. And the swearing in our show should be in the script. If it's not in the script, it doesn't serve the show. I've got nothing against swearing. I don't care about swearing, and we swear a reasonable amount, I would say. But we notice it that when you have like a sort of rowdy or boisterous crowd, maybe we'll say another fuck here or there, and the other one will be like, "Oh, you're doing it, knock it off." So that's something that we actively try to stop and signal during like a clear show.
Yeah, I think that's very common. Like, in terms
hugely common.
I find I swear most when I'm doing new stuff that I haven't really worked out yet.
Absolutely, new stuff.
Because swear word sounds better than an
It gives
in my
you,
head.
yeah.
I don't think it does. You listen to the recording back and you go, "This is horrendous."
No,
this
well,
is seriously off-putting.
I don't agree that it gives the joke any punch, but I think that it gives, particularly if you're working stuff out, I think it does give the audience some punch.
Yeah.
And that's why people use it as and not all swearing is a crutch. People can swear heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps, but the way we use it when a crowd is boisterous can be a bit of a crutch sometimes. We want to take that out. When we're swearing, we want it to be deliberate. The C-bomb we use, like, if we're going to use it, we use it once. And we use it once very, very deliberately and normally towards the end because we're quite clean boys.
I have one joke that involves a C-bomb, and it's only because I've tried it with everything else and it just doesn't work without it. And other than that, I don't use it. I did use it. I was at a rugby league luncheon last Friday.
Yeah.
And I used it in another joke that I could. Sometimes
and I used it to the
no,
later D.
Well, listen. No, I used it in a joke that I normally don't. But the crowd it was a noisy room, and I had at any given point, I reckon I had 2/3 of them actually listening. The rest and that it was an attention. It was laying down a marker for attention in that room, and I did it instinctively. I didn't even really think too much about it. But then I was thinking back, well, why did you do that? And then I was like, I think that that was my instinct. Was okay, and it sort of did drag, it demands attention rather than the other one. When you've got their attention, it's just it's just as funny to say a much softer word that you're not going to upset ladies or people that don't like that word. So
now this is my ideal. But the ideal is to have a structure where the swear words you are saying are deliberate and intentional. But like I said, it is absolutely something that we fall into.
Oh, mate. Well, I swear too much in life, so I'll find sometimes when I'm comfortable on stage and they're comfortable, that I'm relating to them the way I'd relate to.
You don't even notice when you're speaking. Half the time, you don't even notice when you're speaking. It's so easy to go on sort of just like autopilot for 15 seconds and then realize you've said fuck this and fuck that in a joke that doesn't normally have them. But certainly trying to avoid that. It's a known crutch of ours. We also deal with the phase out. See, this is what do you think of this, right? Because some people, they get so, I don't know, emotional about a bomb, and I'm sitting there thinking, if you're doing 120 shows that all go for an hour this year, and every single one of them is amazing, good on you. But if one or two of them aren't what you hoped they would be for the finished product, then systematically, if it's happening regularly, if it's happening all the time, it's your show, change it. But if you kill every show for 3 weeks and then you have one mild crowd and it's raining outside and everyone was late and there's a protest or whatever, people will beat themselves up on it for ages. I'm like, no, you get one. You're allowed to have a night that's slightly under. This is...
Sometimes
and you give them the same show and there'll be 10 people in there who think it's the best thing you've ever done. I guarantee you.
But that's the thing. Sometimes as an audience, you can't, there's not standard responses. Sometimes as comedians, you think that the only indicator of you doing really well is they're laughing super loud, boisterously.
Exactly. And that could be driven by as little as 2-4 people.
100%.
2 to 4 people. If they're on the money and they're laughing hard, the crowd will follow their lead. Whereas if you got the exact same 100 people, just 96 of them without the 4 people who are driving the crowd, and they don't know anyone in the crowd, they just happen to be there and the crowd will follow the vibe. You had the same 96, you did the same show, and it was mild. They'd like it just as much.
Well, it's funny you should say this. So I did that run a gig.
Notwithstanding, sometimes they definitely hate you. Definitely.
Oh, don't you worry. I've seen the comments online.
Oh, yeah.
One of the gigs, did that run of gigs with Jim Owen last year.
Yeah.
And the one probably he and I thought was the worst in terms of audience response.
Yeah.
I had people from that come to I mentioned it when I did the store. I mentioned we had, and I never named which show. There was one, because it was a story about how there's 3 times my oldest son's seen me do stand-up and never has it gone well. And so once was at a seniors gala at the town hall.
Yeah, I could tell
just
from
after COVID.
The first 2 words of that sentence.
But it's even worse because it was just after COVID. So it was I think 30%, 40% capacity. They're spread out. They're all wearing masks.
Yeah.
It was
3
rough.
died during the performance.
Yeah,
you were one of them.
It was rough. And
Yeah.
then the second time was at a function before the NRL Grand Final, which went
rough.
as well as that goes.
We did comedy
it went
during
really
the lunch break on the Ashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, with the context for me, I was like, that went as well as it's going to go. But it's not,
exactly. But it's not good.
Set up for comedy.
Like, yeah, exactly.
And there's people in those audiences who like it and talk to you afterwards, but it's not why they came to see a grand final, not you.
With the Ashes as a sidebar, we did it during lunch, but they were late. We were late, something to do with weather or whatever. They were late putting us on stage, and we had to do 20 minutes, and play resumed when we still had like 5 minutes left. And the guy told us we had to do the 5 minutes.
That's ridiculous.
But we weren't allowed to perform during an over. So we had to do 1 minute at a time while they changed bowlers. It might not have been the Ashes. It might have been President's 11 or something like that. Was it Monica over in Canberra?
It definitely wasn't the Ashes.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the Ashes. No.
Prime Minister's 11.
I just remembered where it was.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and it was a big game. It was a proper big game.
Yeah.
And then we had to do 1 minute at a time for the next 6 overs to do our time. And we're like, can we just go? Because the cricket's
you
on.
You don't have a lot of 1 minute songs.
We don't. We had to start a song and then stop and then be like, remember what we were talking about?
Mate, it's not a cassette player. You can't just hit pause and restart.
Exactly. He'd be on a hat trick at the end of the over. Everyone would be like, oh, and we're like, all right, everyone. Just another minute for you, just while they change hands.
That sounds horrendous.
Yeah, it was grim.
Yeah, well, so that's amazing. But there'd be people.
Yeah, the third time, sorry.
Yeah, the third time was at this gig with Jamal.
Yeah.
And literally, my son stayed like side of stage, watched the whole show.
Yeah.
And then I'd come down to I just assumed when you open for someone, sometimes the crowd's just there to see them. They're not that interested.
Yeah.
And so I just said, mate, I think this is your crowd. And then he came down and he goes, Jamal was like, man, that was hard. Like there was a lot of work in that. Yeah. And then my son came down and Jamal just turned to him and he goes, you have to understand, your dad and I are usually much better than that. And it was the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me.
Oh, that's good. They believed you.
But
people came to the show.
People came to my show and they were like, because I'd referenced, there was one show.
Yeah.
And people came and they were like, it wouldn't have been that one, would it? And I was like, no, it wasn't. I'm like, definitely
it was. By and large, the shows that I feel have gotten the mildest reception. I mean, obviously, look, every now and then there's an all-time bomb. You can't deny it's a bomb, right? But by and large, the shows that have had the mildest reception, this reception you don't normally get when you're performing a finished hour for people, have sold easily the most merchandise and have seen easily the most people follow us after a show.
Yeah.
On socials and stuff. So like it's not equitable to think about how you enjoy a show. I don't know about you, but like I love watching comedy live. I watch a lot of it. I don't watch a lot of recorded specials. But I don't really laugh. No, I laugh a little bit, but I don't laugh as much as the audience members next to me.
Yeah.
Because I see so much of it. But I love it. And it's not that I'm not enjoying it, which is why I was trying to sit up the back in mate shows. Because they'll be like, why didn't you laugh? And I'm like, that was fucking fantastic. And they're like, yeah, but you weren't like, like the audience. I'm like, of course I wasn't like the audience. I was sitting there, thinking about the structure and I'd seen bits of it and, like I'm in your world. So there's so many people who like so many things and a lot of people, surprisingly. This sounds like I'm really trying to justify that people don't laugh at our shows. A lot of people, they sit there and they just enjoy it in silence and they told me afterwards they really liked it.
They buy merch because they feel sorry for us.
Yeah. Although if that was consistently our reaction, I'd be very concerned. Yeah. But if every now and then you get that sort of reaction, some people just panic.
Mate, the amount of times I've and it took me a long time to learn that you thought you've had a bad set and someone comes up to talk to you about how good it was, and then you go, oh no, this was, and it's like, don't talk them out of the fact that they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But you don't.
That's what I hate about it too.
Completely different to theirs.
Yeah, if the audience are giving a mid-reception or even if they're hating it, whatever, and the comedian that you're watching turns on them. I saw a musical comedian who will not be named because I love musical comedians and I was expecting them to play musical comedy. And they turned so hard on the audience for not being on the level that they wanted to be on, that they didn't play a single song.
Oh.
And I'm like, I came here, they would start songs and stop them and then berate the audience and talk about how shit they are. I'm like, I don't care what time you're having. I came here to see you, and I came here to see you play songs, and you didn't play any.
Yeah.
And you've ripped not only me off, you've ripped. I mean, I got in for free, but you've ripped off everyone there.
I'd be very annoyed.
You've ripped off everyone there who was there to see you.
Yeah.
Who maybe maybe a bunch of people were having a shit time. Maybe it wasn't a great show. But those people who were there to see you, they'll never see you again. They don't like you anymore.
That's the thing.
You've ruined their night.
If it is like people not enjoying it, then there's a percentage of that. Like
then don't do it for them. Do it for the guys who might.
Exactly, and then you've got people you think might not be coming back.
Yeah.
Why make everyone those people?
Exactly. Just do the show, and then they can make up their mind if they like it or not. And I'm not idiotic to say that everyone likes everything. You know, suck up the joint, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have many times will
have
again.
A swing.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a go.
Now, mate, we are getting to time, so I do need to ask. So before we go, I'll get you to plug whatever you want to plug.
Oh yeah.
But I've been asking this a lot of the time. 5 years time from now, like everything breaks the Steve-O's way. What's the where would you like to be? What sort of stuff would you like to be doing as the Stevenson experience, or as just James Stevenson?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question. It's a really good question. It's interesting because COVID came right in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff that was getting really exciting. And I think my answer to in 5 years from now, I'd like to be confidently back and doing one of those main things, which is Edinburgh.
Yep.
So we were building up our stuff quite well in Edinburgh, and then there's this huge 4-year gap, and then we don't really know, we haven't been back. It's become more expensive, it's become more commercial, it's become more risky. 2 of the years you could have cancelled your whole run if you got a cough, like all that stuff. Edinburgh costs like $30,000, $40,000 to go and do. So consistently to Edinburgh, but my goal with comedy has always been the same. I love it when people see you because they like you and because they like what you do. So to make a living solely off the number of people who buy a ticket because it's got the Stevenson experience on it, they're there to see the Stevenson experience. You know, what's that? Nothing huge. 200 every night and do the tours the same duration that we've done, 100 dates or something like that. That's the ideal. That's the dream and the goal. Whereas at the moment, it's sort of like with Edinburgh and the UK and stuff. We haven't quite got back. So I'd love to get back, and I'd like to do that regularly. It still feels risky to go back. Whereas 2020, when we were going to go, that got cancelled. We were just ready. We weren't thinking about risk. We weren't thinking about anything. We were just running the shows. But for me, the end goal is always people just buying a ticket to you or to see you. But no, it doesn't have to be the fucking opera house or anything. I just want the I don't really care about that sort of stuff as long as the right number of people are coming to see you for what you do and like you, which is good. It's a good position to be in.
If you can put food on the table and pay the bills with just the shit you made up because people wanted to come see it and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And if they keep enjoying it, things sort of get bigger. But yeah, I don't think it doesn't matter. If it was 100 seats, if it was 1,000 seats, if that place is full of people with your ticket, that's the right level.
Yeah.
And that'd be fucking awesome. So, yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Nice. Now, plug whatever you want to plug. Where can people find Steve-O's stuff?
When's this coming out?
This will come out next week.
Ah, okay.
Actually, no, this will come out in 2 days' time because I fell behind.
There you go. Well, I can't plug one thing, so I will plug my brother is an author as well as being part of the Stevenson experience. So he has written Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, which was a #1 bestseller and has been adapted or is being adapted for a HBO miniseries.
And one of the few books I've read in the last few years.
There you go. Yeah. You got Barney's tick of approval.
Mate, if it gets me to actually finish it, that's a good book.
So it's a really good book and a really good concept and really fun. It's like Agatha Christie meets Knives Out and stuff like that. It's got a sequel now. Everyone on this train is a suspect. And he's got a Christmas novella coming out in a month or 2 or something like that called Everyone This Christmas Has a Secret, which is a short thing. So those 3 books are what I'd plug. They're my brother's books and they're great. And you will see the series on HBO in a major, it was like a major like Hollywood deal. It's huge. And when it happened, comedians would ask me or him about it like it was a rumor, like it couldn't be true. Which was very funny and very interesting, but everyone's been really kind about it. So that would be my plug.
That would be your plug. And now, obviously, there's something else that you want to be able to plug but can't plug yet. Where will that be when people want to look for it? If they follow the Stevenson Experience?
Yeah, if you follow the Stevenson Experience, at Stevenson Experience on Instagram, we'll post stuff about it there, and you can check out our stuff.
Exciting stuff coming, mate. Thanks so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.